She's sitting on the bed, okay? Because I just took the sheets off. I don't want pug hair all over my bed, okay? Alright. So you're gonna have to stay down here just for like the next hour. Then you get to be on my bed. Oh shit. Yeah, we're not gonna do this entirely on video. So Avengers Endgame has been out for about a month now. And I wanted to talk about this movie to kind of like have the hype die down just a little bit and have everyone just stop pumping Avengers Endgame videos out. And I wanted to give kind of my final perspective on the movie in general. And also just a little bit of warning on this video. It is going to be spoiler filled. I can't talk about Endgame without giving some spoilers because the entire fucking movie is a spoiler. And this video is unscripted, so you're gonna hear a lot of ands and buts and ums and a lot of stuttering. And I do mean a lot of stuttering because I cannot speak for shit. But yeah, Avengers Endgame, it's been out for about a month now, and with $2.7 billion under its belt, it's on its way and becoming the highest grossing movie of all time, right behind Avatar. And for it being so successful, it's actually quite simple. For one, if you're gonna have the most ambitious crossover event, how Marvel explains it, to be this like 2.5 hour epic, the first part, and then the next part you're gonna have it be 3 hours. But the way that Infinity War ends is that the bad guy wins. Of course, everyone, the way that they're left off, they're like, I guess I have to go see this new Avengers movie. And just the pre-sale tickets and the worldwide opening weekend, it just broke so many records. It was like 1.3 billion worldwide on the first weekend. So many people went to go and see this movie. It just shows that the cinema experience is still alive. If you make a movie that people are going to actually give a shit about and have some pretty brilliant marketing at that, you're gonna have people go to the theater and watch it. And my final thoughts on Avengers Endgame is that I like it, but I didn't think it was as good as Infinity War. Because if we're talking about the grand scheme of things on how Marvel wanted to end this Infinity Saga, as they're labeling it now, you're gonna have to go absolutely all out when it comes to how the MCU movies have progressed throughout the years. And in that aspect, I think they did a pretty good job, because like the Avengers' whole plan was to, because it's a time travel movie, and of course you're gonna have, whenever a movie deals with time travel, you're going to deal with like a lot of like plot holes and just conveniences every now and then, which for one, Marvel movies are sort of filled with conveniences all throughout, so it didn't really bug me all too much, because we're 22 movies in. I don't really care at this point. And two, like, as far as we know, time travel is just a fantasy. I mean, it could be discovered within millennias and millennias ahead, in which those people can look back on the movies being made about time travel, you know, the ones that we know today. I mean, they might laugh at it, but as far as we know, it's just a fantasy, and we can basically write whatever the fuck that we want about it. So, how sometimes they break the rules within time travel, I get it. Time travel is kind of hard to write. But yeah, like I said, this video is unscripted, so I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. So we need to talk about like the first act and the second act and third act, which each act takes about like a good hour or so. Which you have the first act, like the first one is just the Avengers dealing with the fact that they have lost, like each of them has lost some of their loved ones and people that they have cared about. And you really get to see on how it's just affecting the whole team. Sometimes they're going against each other, and you know how, you know, you get to see the consequences of Civil War too, because Iron Man, he felt like he was doing more work than Captain America. So it quite surprised me to see that Thanos being killed off within the first 15 minutes, because I thought in my mind that he was just gonna, boom, reality stone, and then he just makes everything look like what the Avengers were up against. It was just an illusion, because he did that see, I can't speak. He did that within Infinity War, and he did that with Gamora, and then I was like, oh, he's gonna do it again, and then that's when the movie's gonna kick off. I was like, sweet. But Thor chops off his head, and then they do a 5-year time jump, which at first I was like, now I don't know what the movie's gonna be about. So you get to see the Avengers kind of, you know, they're kind of moving on. You get to see Hawkeye and how he's dealing with it. You know, his family just gets disintegrated within the first 10 seconds of the movie. You get to see that he's going all the way across the world and he's just killing criminals. That's probably like the best representation of Hawkeye that we've seen, even though He doesn't have too much of a character. He's just a guy that has a family and he really cares about Natasha, and that's basically it. Doesn't make for a good character or it doesn't make for a bad character. He is just a character who's just there. In the MCU, I don't feel like I need every character to have some bit of depth. But as far as this one's concerned, I feel like this is the one that Hawkeye got fleshed out the most. But where was I? Where was I going with this? Where the fuck was I going with this? But yeah, the 5-year time jump. I got to see how everybody deals with it. But yeah, the first hour is a bit depressing. And I liked how it was just all set up, and you know, how Infinity War starts, it's just action right off the bat. I liked how the second part doesn't hit it off right away. It takes its time to set it up and go through what the Avengers' plan is. And without Ant-Man coming into the picture, I think that the Avengers' plan wouldn't have come to be if it wasn't for him. For him to talk about the quantum realm and shit like that, because I knew that was going to be a big part of Avengers as soon as I saw Ant-Man and the Wasp. You guys know how I feel about Ant-Man and the Wasp. But one thing that I took out of that movie, which is kind of the sad thing, is that the end credit scene was a lot better than the actual movie itself. Because it kind of shows that Ant-Man now has something that he's lost, and just like everybody else, and they have to work together to kind of bring everybody back. So for him explaining to how like the quantum realm works, and like that one scene that kind of like stuck out to me the most was when, you know, that was like 5 years down the line, but then Natasha Romanoff, she's like, oh yeah, that must have been like a long 5 years. And then he's like, oh, that's the thing though, it wasn't, it was actually 5 hours. Time and space works differently in the quantum realm. If they're going to set it up as a time travel movie, it's kind of an okay setup. I didn't think it was the best of setups, but it was good enough at that point. And especially now, like I've seen the movie a total of 3 times, which is something I also totally forgot to mention. And I've just let the movie marinate within my mind and how I totally feel about it. But yeah, the whole time travel aspect within the movie I thought was pretty good. You know, the first act, I can see the complaints, but again, you gotta have character build up, you gotta have the character progression, how they feel about the whole Thanos snapped, and how just everything just feels hopeless. Until that spark of hope comes up when Ant-Man comes into the picture, talks about the quantum realm, and then now they have their full-on plan on how they're going to get the Infinity Stones, bring them back, snap everybody into existence, but not change everything. And the reason being is because, you know, Tony Stark discovers time travel just like that, kind of weirdly enough. Like, he discovers it quick. Like the day that Steve Rogers, Ant-Man, and Natasha come up to his house, and he has, you know, he's married to Pepper, and he has a daughter, so Iron Man's dad now. They kind of place it on him. It's like, we have a chance to go back, and he's like, nah, I have my second chance already. I'm not gonna roll the dice on that, which is totally understandable. But Iron Man being Iron Man, and he wants to help, you know, people for the sake of good, he discovers time travel just like that, which I was kind of like, yeah, I get it. It's Tony Stark. Whatever. He's a genius. So now the whole plan to, again, bring the Infinity Stones back into their time and snap everybody into existence, they're trying to think back. Okay, so where was the stones at the time of Thanos took them? Again, that was the moment that the Russo brothers did a really good job to kind of like backtrace on how they were going to, for one, use the time travel element to get the stones back or whatever. But they had this thing in there called Pym particles, which is from Hank Pym, the Michael Douglas character in the Ant-Man series. The whole team needed that. They have a very scarce resource on Pym particles, so their whole plan was, oh, we only get one round trip back, and that's it. No screw ups or whatever. They're gonna have a team go to New York, a team go to Asgard, and one in what was it? Yeah, one in New York, one in Asgard, one in Morag, which was in the first Guardians, and then Vormir. That was the plan. I'm surprised that I remember that shit. So conveniently, that's where the conveniences come in, is that they do point out that in New York at a particular time, which was in 2012, there would be 3 Infinity Stones at the same time in one place. I get it, because, you know, you have, for one, the Tesseract, you have Loki's Scepter, which was 1 Infinity Stone already. I don't know the entire names of the Infinity Stones at this point. I just know, like, the colors. I know it sounds completely fucking stupid. And the other one was the Time Stone. So you had Iron Man, Captain America, Ant-Man, and the Hulk go to New York, and they kind of have an idea of where everything's at. But they kind of show up at like near the end of the Avengers movie, right when they're about to take out Loki. So it's just easier to get the scepter at this point, because we don't have to go through the entire original Avengers movie again. Then we kind of get to see an extended scene on like what happens post Avengers, or like post battle with Loki, which I thought was pretty cool when they ran into Robert Redford, and who was at that point, which they didn't know is the leader of Hydra. And something that I caught that I'm sure like not a lot of people caught is when Robert Redford came up to him. He's like, "Oh, where are you going?" And then Thor says, "Oh, we're going to lunch, and then we're gonna take Loki up to Asgard." Which I was like, that's right. I remember at the end of the first Avengers, they had the shawarma scene. That was something that I caught. I thought was pretty funny. I liked it. So they get Loki's scepter. Captain America had to, pretend to be Hydra at that point. So that's really all he had to say, which was kind of stupid. But he had to fight himself. The whole thing of like not running into like your past selves, or which I understand, because like at that point Loki already escaped, and then Captain America thinks that he's Loki. So at that point, I get it. He did use Loki's scepter against him, and then he made a comment about America's ass, which I didn't think it was that funny, but it was in the movie. So they get the scepter. The Hulk had to convince Tilda Swinton's character, Ancient One, to basically, hey, give me the Time Stone, because something's bad's gonna happen within like years in the future. Which I thought was pretty cool when he actually approached her, because he was like, "Oh, I'm looking for Doctor Strange," and then she's all like, "Ah, you're like a couple years a little too early. He's actually a couple blocks down that way performing surgery." And I was like, "Oh, even the Ancient One knew who Doctor Strange was." So she knew the whole time, but how come she didn't know that Doctor Strange was going to be the one to give up the Time Stone? It's like little writing errors that they made that I was kind of like, whatever about, because the Hulk does mention that it's like, yeah, Doctor Strange just willingly gives Thanos the Time Stone. She was kind of smart enough to be like, he must have done it for a reason, so fuck it, just gives him the Time Stone or whatever. And that was it. But the Tesseract, that little glowing cube that they had throughout the Avengers movies, Loki escapes with it. Which right then and there, I instantly thought that that's how the Loki series was gonna start off, because Disney Plus is gonna have their streaming service, which $7.99 a month. It's not that bad. So yeah, Loki escapes, and then at that point, they felt like they're kind of in a screw position until Captain America and Iron Man have to go back into the 70s and get the Tesseract within, I think it was in New Jersey or something, and they had to go to like an old SHIELD base to like where Howard Stark was still kind of like, so kind of a thing. But I thought it was a really touching scene that Iron Man finally gets to. He now knows that his dad really kind of loved him. Throughout the entire series, he just felt like he's been a burden to his dad and shit like that. So it was actually really touching. I'm glad that they had scenes like that. And it was also a little bit heartbreaking how everybody can go back to like some of the people that meant so much to them, especially with Thor and his mom. They get peace within themselves, except for Captain America, because he can't talk to Peggy because she thinks that he's dead at the moment. So he had to keep it that way, which was kind of a heartbreaking scene. So they're able to get the Tesseract through there, but then we get to the Asgard scene with Thor and Rocket. The thing with Thor, funny enough, because I heard a lot of complaints, I've heard a lot of mixed things about the direction that Thor is being taken as, which I'm more of the side of I didn't mind it, just because Thor's just had so much shit handed to him, like within these past couple movies. His people have died, his parents and his brother have died, and for him to deal with all this, just like how he feels like he's a failure and coping it up with comedy, was a very accurate representation of depression, if you ask me. I don't think that they ruined Thor. In fact, I think that they've really elevated him to the point where his character just has this like roller coaster like vibe where he has his ups and his downs. Just simple. He's just like everybody else, as his mom pointed out that when he was talking with her. So they needed to get the ether from Natalie Portman, which they had a lot of that within this movie, where they'll get like Oscar nominated actors and actresses and have them barely say anything and just for them to be in like a brief moment within Endgame. So they extract the ether from Natalie Portman, and then they just get out of there, and then of course Thor gets the Mjolnir as soon as they're about to leave. Then we get over to what was the fucking planet again? Morag in the first Guardians, and how Peter Quill steals it from that temple or whatever it's at. So Nebula and War Machine were there, and Nebula kind of warns them, is like, oh hey, just like a brief heads up, he wasn't the only one after. It was also, you know, Thanos and me and my sister. And at that point, you know, you get to see Nebula kind of really desperately trying to get the approval of Thanos, and of course just Thanos being Thanos just completely physically and emotionally abuses her at that point. Once War Machine and Nebula get, you know, that Infinity Stone, whichever that one is, they make their way back. But Nebula, she actually stays behind, just because I guess her microchip was still connected with the Nebula within the past Nebula. So when they were looking into her mind to see what she was thinking of, I thought that was a weird writing choice, but they just kind of had to move the plot forward to get to where the previous Thanos would get into the future. So yeah, the only one that made it back was past Nebula, I think. That's the one part that kind of slips my mind just a little bit. And of course you get to the Vormir, where you have Red Skull and Hawkeye and Black Widow were there. You know, the whole soul for a soul thing, which I hear a lot of people saying, well, why couldn't somebody else go? I was like, well, Avengers, they have like weird relationships. Not everybody cares for each other super deeply, whereas like Hawkeye and Black Widow, they have a past together, at least for a good 10-15 years. Well, maybe not that long, but for like a good amount of time to where they can consider each other best friends. So I thought that it was kind of an emotional scene, seeing each other fight their way to their deaths. They had to do what they had to do in order for them to save the universe, the soul for a soul thing. So it had to be a person. I totally got that. It couldn't just be an inanimate object, to where I heard people say like, oh, just have Thor throw over his beer or whatever. It's like, nah, it's not how it works. They all come back with the Infinity Stones, and I could be totally mistaken, but Nebula from the past goes into present, which was in like 2023, I think. She was able to get Thanos back up into the present day, which is, you know, in the future for our terms. And Iron Man made a Infinity Gauntlet, which I thought was pretty cool, that it's able to like shaped into like anybody's size, but still able to hold the power of the universe within just Stark Industries tech. Thor felt like he was gonna be the one to snap everybody back into existence, but because you know how he's just been feeling throughout the entire movie. But it was really the Hulk that could survive all of that power within the Infinity Stones, and actually took a lot out of him, weirdly enough. But again, this is all based off of like, you know, comic book shit, to where like him being like a literal gamma radiation creature compared to like fighting the power of the universe. So him getting one half of his body burnt off, then he snaps everybody into existence, and then that's when the real battle. I think this is the greatest fight in MCU history. It's absolute, complete, total fan service, but I feel like it just works in terms of like situations to where like you feel like the tension between like all these characters and just where they are when they're fighting Thanos. Because if Thanos eventually gets back to their time while getting everybody back, because he eventually learns that it's like, oh, you know, they're trying to undo something that I have already done. But so if I go back into that time, I can be able to get that gauntlet back, and then I can just redo whatever, but I can create a whole new universe, because you guys are just some ungrateful assholes. So then they kind of had something else I felt was a missed opportunity, just because, you know, you had the 3-on-1 with Thanos. You had Cap, Iron Man, and Thor fighting Thanos. I felt the Hulk should have been a part of it, but that's just a personal preference. It's not really like a writing issue or whatever. Which you know, the final battle, again, it's total fan service, just because you finally get to see Captain America wield the Mjolnir, which I thought was the coolest shit, and how he was ping-ponging Thanos within his fucking shield. Which at this point, like, This Thanos was much more dangerous than Infinity War Thanos. Infinity War Thanos was just kind of like, he was a little bit calm about certain things just because like he's just dealt with so much over the years and he was just kind of like, fuck it at this point. This was like Endgame Thanos was like prime Thanos. Like he was just a warlord that was just conquering shit, and he felt like it wasn't really like a personal thing towards them, but once it was, that he would just go absolute ape shit on them. Like it got to a point where he just completely kicks all three of the main Avengers' asses, even with Cap wielding the Mjolnir. And once shit just seemed totally hopeless and Cap was like about to fight Thanos' army with just by himself and shit like that, that shot alone, I'm gonna have that frame because that's a pretty dope shot. That's when everybody comes in, you know, and it's like literally everybody. It was quite a magical moment within superhero cinema. Yeah, especially like them gathering together and them charging and shit. I thought it was cool. Again, it's not art house cinema or anything. It's a superhero movie and an enjoyable one at that. But the way that I look at it, you know, and a lot of people will disagree, because I look at movies a little bit differently than others, is that it's just a movie. And of course I'm going to pick and choose, like, you know, not pick and choose, kind of, you know, pick apart the movie a little bit. It's very flawed. I totally understand. But at the end of the day, it's that third act that I'm always talking about, because that last hour is just complete and utter chaos. Never would I thought in a million years that I would see Captain America throw Thor's hammer all the way across the map. Spider-Man with the Infinity Gauntlet in his arms goes flying across it while web slinging onto the thing. I was like, this is some comic book shit. Of course, you know, this is the part where I was kind of like, it kind of got stupid from that point. So when Captain Marvel just flies in, and she literally just flies through a fucking ship and just destroys that shit. Why couldn't you come sooner? It would have been super helpful if you did, because no doubt that she's super fucking powerful, but she would have come in sooner, or at least have, you know, somebody else like anime god Shaggy come into the picture, show that the MCU is having some really big plans within their future. So yeah, Thanos is still just slaughtering everybody. Like, doesn't matter if it's Captain Marvel or whatever, cause he would be headbutting her and he would just do a complete 180 on her, pull the whatever Infinity Stone, punch her through that, and it finally gets to the part where Iron Man finally defeats Thanos with the I am Iron Man, gets the Infinity Stones, and then snaps everybody out of existence. Yeah, he dies from that, which was crazy, because it's just an emotional filled ride within that theater experience, to say the least. Everybody was clapping and cheering, and once it got to that part, I heard a lot of people going. I was one of those people too. I cried when Iron Man passed away, just because, like, all right, this is gonna get like a little bit personal here, because back in like 2008 when Iron Man was a thing, and I'm just really into, I've always been into superhero movies as a kid. I technically grew up on them. Yeah, I got picked on a lot just because I liked those movies and how just nerdy they were. I've always been attached to nerd culture. Like when Spider-Man came out, I got like picked on because it was like, oh, it's just like a dumb superhero movie. Yeah, I get it, but it's fun. It's cool. And now 11 years later, seeing one of the biggest movies of all time become this thing, and seeing the guy who started this superhero craze kind of go out like a champ. He's someone that saved the universe. And that hit home with me, just because for more personal reasons too, but I don't want to get into that because I probably will cry. It was a solid conclusion to Iron Man's arc. So you know, them having like the 15-minute wrap up and how they're going to set up future Marvel movies, you know, Guardians 3. I totally fuck with the idea of Thor teaming up with the Guardians, them searching for Gamora and shit like that. I'm totally with the idea of Valkyrie being the new king or queen of Asgard. And I really like the idea that Captain America gave his shield to Falcon, because you know, Bucky already has his metal arm. Like, what's Falcon has his wings. Like, think about it. He can use his wings and throw the fucking shield. If anything, like, people from Wakanda can recreate the serum that Captain America had and give it to Sam, so he can be just as powerful, if not more powerful, than Steve Rogers. So him retiring the shield off to, you know, Sam and shit like that was pretty cool. Which, once again, I got a bit ahead of myself. That's when Steve returns the Infinity Stones back to its timeline, just because of the warning that the Ancient One said to the Hulk, saying, you gotta put them back once you guys are done. And then this is another issue that I kind of had with it, once you kind of see Captain America get back and he's super old. So would that mean that there's 2 Captain Americas within that timeline, just because, like, Captain America dived that ship back in World War II, and then they had to unfreeze him once it got around the 2010-ish era? So would that mean that there would be 2 different Steve Rogers within the same timeline? But overall, I would say I really liked it. I really liked the movie. It does slow down in particular points, which, you know, you kind of have to set up how the Avengers are gonna do their you know, their plan and everything. A lot of people are like really complaining about Endgame, how it's like kind of a unfulfilled finale, which I feel is like this is possibly like the best finale they could have done. Like how they could have gathered past MCU movies and put it all into one movie and really make it feel like a season finale. It's crazy, because I can't imagine how absolutely difficult it must have been to just write all this shit into just one movie. I believe 2 people wrote this movie. Of course, with like the studios, you know, interference with some of the I'm pretty sure that's happening there. If I were to give it a score, I would give it a good 8 out of 10. It's a super rewatchable movie, I believe, but not as much as Infinity War. I absolutely love Infinity War. It was just boom. It was just boom, 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 right from the beginning all the way to the end, and it doesn't let you go. Endgame was a bit more somber approach to some of the Marvel movies, which it was more of a serious approach, which I really much appreciate that for. Both Infinity War parts, or Thanos saga or whatever, I thought it was really well done. I'm glad that we finally have some good Marvel movies that we can reflect on and talk about for years to come. Because if anything, I'm gonna be talking about Endgame for years down the line, it would be that final battle. Because holy shit, you can't tell me that shit wasn't awesome. All right, I think I'm done talking about Endgame and me looking like a complete idiot within the past, how long? 40 minutes? I've taken like 40 minutes to record this. Of course, within the editing process, I'm gonna trim down a whole lot of fat within there. All right, guys. So Avengers Endgame. I've seen the movie about 3 times, and I've let it marinate within my mind for a month, and I really like it. I'm kind of like this when it comes to me liking the movie, but yeah, I would more than be happy to watch it again. I'm always having people coming up to me and saying, "Oh, let's go watch it," and I'm like, "Yeah, sure, of course." So, not a problem with me watching the movie again and again, just like Infinity War. So, yeah, I'm glad that the Infinity Saga is done. Kind of not really interested to see where they're gonna go within the future, except for Guardians 3. I'm really excited for that. Yeah, Avengers Endgame. What did you guys think about the movie? Did you guys like it? Did you guys hate it? I totally understand where you guys will be coming from if you're on the, you know, one side or the other, or right down the middle, because you know, movie likes are very subjective. I totally see from every side of the spectrum. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought about down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I'm gonna be doing more videos like this, because I just have a lot of fun just recording this. I'm having a lot of fun just rambling on just dumb shit. I sound like an idiot when I'm saying this, but I'm having a lot of fun doing it. That's what matters at the end, right? Alright guys, so I'll see you later, and let's try and propel Avengers Endgame up to the #1 highest grossing movie of all time. It's gonna hit there, just watch. Alright guys, have a good one.